Hi, everybody. Adrian Fuentes here. Did you know that the Democrats of Greater Tucson has a website, thedgt.org, and if you subscribe, it's only 20 bucks. You can support this great weekly communication where folks get together. Sometimes there's candidates, sometimes folks like me pop on to help understand what's going on in the world. The Democrats of Greater Tucson, thedgt.org. Join up today.
And we have a candidate in the Pima County Supervisor race, District 3, and he's Edgar Soto. And Edgar Soto has been an educator for 30 years plus. He brings a wealth of practical knowledge as a candidate for Pima County Supervisor. He is not a career politician, but he really has interacted with students, understanding their stories and dreams. His expertise enables them to prepare students for success and advocate for their futures. He's been a baseball coach and athletic director at Pima Community College. And he's also been involved with USA Baseball, which ingrained in him the value of teamwork and collaboration towards a common goal. This experience uniquely qualifies him to serve as the Pima County Board of Supervisors, where he'll bring a team-oriented mindset to address our community's challenges effectively. Edgar has deep roots in Pima County, where his family has resided for generations. He speaks to a profound connection to his community. As a proud local, I often say, we don't cross any borders, the borders crossed us. This intimate understanding of our history and needs uniquely qualifies him to serve on the Pima County Board of Supervisors. Let's give a warm welcome to our candidate for Supervisor District 3 in Pima County, Edgar Soto. Edgar, floor is yours.
Well, I appreciate that introduction. My dad would have been proud and my mom would have believed you. So I'm thankful that you added all that stuff in there, but there was something you left out that is the whole reason I'm here. So the part you left out is I was a Dean of Arts and Humanities. And the reason that's so important is because of this. For a long time at Pima, you can get pigeonholed in a certain area. And for me, it was fitness, wellness, it was athletics. And I was trying to get more involved in the academia world. And the reality was I was kind of labeled the jock guy, right? I don't want to say dumb jock, but that's sometimes people in the academia world can see it. Finally, I had a vice president that gave me an opportunity as an acting dean for arts and humanities. And you could imagine that didn't make everybody too happy. But the reason I say that is to say this: that opportunity opened a lot of doors for me beyond the athletics world. That opportunity gave me an opportunity to meet a gentleman named Matthew Earl Jones, who's a director of film for Arizona. That opportunity allowed me to work with a group of people that at the beginning didn't really like the idea of some jock guy coming and being the Dean of Arts and Humanities. And I remember particularly the former interim dean didn't get the position. He was the department head, and I had to come in and help get him on board. And I remember him saying to me, "Hey, do you have the qualifications to be our dean?" And I remember telling him vividly, I said, I don't. I can't sing. I'm not much of an artist, and I don't play any instruments. So no, but what I can do is give you what you need to be successful. If you need a $5,000 tuba to teach your students, which is actually a real thing, then I need to give you what you need to be successful. And we talked for a couple hours, and he realized, he says, "You know what, Edgar, I'm on board." He says, "But there's about 30 other faculty that aren't happy that they're here." I'm going off on a tangent here, but there's a point to this. The one thing that I remember most is that I was supposed to be there for 2 months. I was there for a year and 2 months, and we really did some amazing thing in the world of arts. And the one thing that I remember, those same faculty members that were saying, "We don't want this guy," were saying, "Hey, I guess we just needed a coach to bring us all together," because we tackled some really difficult problems. So I'm glad you missed that part because it allowed me to kind of explain. When I did meet Matthew Earl Jones, the director of film, he took me down to a panel discussion, and we had this robust film industry. And Matthew Earl Jones is James Earl Jones's brother, you know, the Darth Vader guy and all this, that, you know, his voice. But that's what got me involved in politics, because what it started is it started me kind of looking at, we used to have a Pima County Sports and Tourism Authority, and we didn't have it anymore. We lost the Diamondbacks. We had potential there. Some legislation would have passed. We could have nearly had 5 teams, but because things didn't happen at the legislative level and policy level, it didn't happen. And so fast forward to 2018, I started trying to get this going again. And there's a lot to it, but what ended up happening, we created a Southern Arizona Sports Tourism Film Authority, which I chair, which includes 6 counties, Pima, Pinal, Graham, Greenlee, Santa Cruz, and Cochise, and 3 tribal nations, Apache, Tohono O'odham, and Pasco Yaqui. And the goal is to bring economic impact through youth and amateur sports, tournaments, you know, professional sports, workforce development type situations, and film. So we've been working. I can go further along, you know, tell you more about that, but I don't want to spend that much time on that story, because that's not what I was planning on talking about. But what it is, it just made me realize how important some of these decisions that are made at the legislative and policy level. And I thought back to a story with my dad, who was in the Marine Corps, but came home and was a Sarco Mines. He worked at the city garbage, and he was the landscaper at El Rio Golf Course, which he loved more than anything because he loved to golf. And they used to allow him to golf for free. And, you know, he was excited about that. Well, a new city manager came in and said, you know what, no more golfing for free. You have to pay full price. I remember him being upset about it. He said, you know, we take care of these greens, we pick up the trash even when we're not working. And what I remember most of him telling me, he says, you know, son, I understand policy. And when it comes to policy, do things right. But when it comes to people, do the right thing. And that kind of just made me think, you know, I've had all these experiences. I'm a vice president at a community college. I've been part of the Aspen Rising President's Fellowship, is actually where I met my campaign manager, Stephanie. I've also been part of the Flynn Brown Fellowship, who's given me a network of such amazing resources and people. And I said, you know what? I've always felt that if I thought I had the skill set to do a job, I would go for it. I don't have aspirations to do anything beyond, you know, working on being on the Pima County Board of Supervisors or being a president of a college. But if I'm in a position where I think my skills would help, I would do that. But what I want you to know is this, is I'm not trying to get elected to be reelected. I want to get elected to do a job. And that job is to serve my constituents and the people of Pima County. So I'll leave it there and hopefully have more time for questions or at least some dialogue.
Okay, well, Edgar, thank you. As Paul Harvey, a journalist who's passed away a long time ago, he used to say, and the rest of the story. So you filled in the rest of the story, and we really appreciate that. You know, at the debate, which it was really great to see the 3 candidates there, and you know, I thought there was some good give and take, some good questioning, and some really good respect. It was a good debate. And but you know, 2 of the candidates talked about their experience in budgeting. And could you fill us in? Because based on your experience at the community college, I'm going to guess you have quite a bit of experience with budgeting.
Well, when I was the athletic director, actually, I had to work with a $2.6 million budget. And we had a lot of things that go in with that, with just the daily cost of living, the cost of transportation going up. That 2.6 went away really fast, especially when you had football. We don't have football anymore. So trying to, you know, really put our investment in the things that matter most. And so, you know, that's a big part of what I had to do. Now the budget's gone down a lot for athletics because we no longer have football. I think they've cut some other sports since I left. But that's a challenge because in the world of athletics, you have a lot of different things that pop up. And what's the good and bad of it is this: if you're really successful in athletics, like we are, and Pima Community College continues to be, you're going to be going to playoffs, to nationals. So, trying to forecast and anticipate, we had to create a budget strategic plan that not only saw where we were, but I like to say a sports analogy here, Wayne Gretzky, see where the puck is going, right? So forecasting is important to me. And I think the county, if there's a way we can invest money into something, it's forecasting. It's looking at where the puck is going, what jobs are going to be the most, pay the best for our community, what infrastructure is going to serve us best, because we know growth is coming to Southern Arizona and Pima County. And we love our Sonoran Desert, our habitat. And so if this is coming, we know that by the year 2050, Phoenix and Tucson will be connected. How do we do this in a way that is going to protect our environment? How are we going to do this in a way that is going to protect habitat? How are we going to do this in a way to keep it green? What are we going to do as far as restoration? I love what our mayor says with 1 million trees. I think that's something real important. What are we going to do to make sure that our water is conserved, that we're not building so much that we're using all our water? How can we be more innovative with our water, whether it's harvesting rainwater, whether it's surface water, whether it's, creating more efficient systems so we don't, use as much water? I think all these things have to do with the budget, and everything we do intertwines. If you do something there, it could impact some over here. So as far as budget, that's, in my experience, of course, the first ones in the world of athletics and being able to forecast, because it's a moving target. And I think the county's budget is similar. As far as the budget I've handled at the Desert Vista campus, that's a little more elaborate because it comes from different programs, different areas. And at one time I was managing both, I was running East Campus and Desert Vista campus while we were going through the process of hiring a new vice president at the East Campus. So I was working with two budgets and making sure that the most important thing in these budgets is to make sure people are healthy and safe, to make sure that the things are working, the air conditioning, the water, all these different things. So, we have to have someone looking at the budget with a wide lens and trying to forecast in a way that's going to be beneficial for us.
Okay, thank you. Mike Bryan has a question.
Yeah, following on that, I just would be interested to know if you've identified any areas of the budget that need to grow or will tend to grow over the coming years, as opposed to those areas that are shrinking or need to shrink in your view.
And that's part of what like the forecasting is. I mean, I'm sure we're probably doing things right now that might not be something that we'll be doing in the future, right? I think we've got to look at all the existing programs and make sure that we are efficient in those areas. But I think the first things that we need to look at is, I mentioned that I overlooked a lot of grants when I was at Desert Vista East Campus, over 10 federal grants. That was another source of funding for us, was with these grants to be able to support us. And it had to do more with all the wraparound support services. The most important thing as an elected official is ensuring that we have adequate funding for law enforcement, fire department, emergency service, and disaster preparedness, because we've got to be ready. We've got to have things in place. And if there's anything that COVID taught us, is that we can do a better job making sure we have services in place, because knowing what we know now, we've got to make sure that we continue to invest in that. And give me the first part of the question again, because I think I got off of it. Give me the first part of that question.
No worries. It was areas of the budget that you think should grow or will tend to grow in the coming years, and the other, of course, the opposite.
Gotcha. Okay, so what I think is going to grow, like I mentioned, if we're growing by the year 2050, I think the housing is going to grow. I think commercial stuff, I think that's coming, whether people support it or not. We need to have a great strategic plan to deal with that. I know the budget's close to $1.8 billion, but we bring in $3 billion worth of property taxes, right? And as these things kind increase, where are we going to put that budget, those line items, which are going to be the most important line items for that?
Kind of a twofold question. As you've been out and about visiting families all throughout the district, your constituents,
Yeah.
what's been the major concern?
What's been consistently every town, whether it's Oro Valley, 3 Points, Marana, Tucson area, everybody's needs seem to be different. When I go to unincorporated Ajo, the big thing for them is healthcare. Maybe a 24-hour pharmacy, some urgent care. The other thing is veterinarians. We all love our pets. I mean, for some of us, they're part of our family. And to make sure that people have the services. So, I mean, that's even the case here in Tucson. People want to make sure that we're taking care of our pets. Now, if I go down to the Flowing Wells area, the big concern there, I mean, I was sitting yesterday with about 6 people, and their biggest concern was the unhoused. What are we going to do about that? How are we going to handle that? They see it growing. They've been here all their life. So that's what they're concerned about there. I go to Marana, and Marana is, it's progressing. They want to make sure that we continue to have the infrastructure, the roads, and all this stuff in place. So I guess there's no one answer for just all District 3 Pima County, with over 30% of it being unincorporated. And that's where I get specific. I don't have any personal policy or agenda. I know some things just because of my experiences, but it's important that I ask those people in those areas how that impacts. Asking Aravaca, how's that I-11 going to impact your area and your our national forest and everything that we do? How's that going to impact? And getting them to tell me that they're my boss. The people are my boss, and they're the ones that give political, government, power. So that's my job, is to listen to those people in those areas and how it's going to impact everyone. And we got to look at it from a wide lens. Part of this Southern Arizona Sports and Tourism Authority that I'm part of, is that, this incorporated 6 counties. And what we've got to look at is what's good for Pinal, is good for Pima, what's good for Pima is good for Cochise. We got to figure out how we can work across borders, blur the borders, and know that if we, help an event that happens in Graham County, it's going to help Pima County. So looking at how we can all work together, whether it be our Apache tribal nation, Pasquayaki or Tohono O'odham, we're all in this together. And I think for me, when you mentioned the part of me coaching and being part of USA Baseball and all that, is bringing teams together, bringing people together, bringing different socioeconomic ethnicities, and figuring out how we could all pull in the same direction. I think I mentioned in the debate how Pima County and Tucson have more nonprofits per capita than anywhere in the country. But what are we going to do to, make strategic and smart decisions because we're working together? So I'd like to be that facilitator at the county level.
Hi, I heard you say something about, I think it was Flowing Wells,
Mhm.
and they asked about the unhoused folks. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a question in regards to how to house these people or how to take care of them, or were they worried about them having them in their neighborhood?
I think the ones I've talked to in my experience are the ones in their neighborhood. They didn't ask what I plan to do to fix it. I mean, I have an idea. I mean, I think, us with the county passing the Prosperity Initiative in December of 2023 and the city following suit in January, I think that's on the right track. Housing, and you can look at my website, I've been really close to this for the last 20 years because I mentioned one of my former student athletes who've been homeless and in and out of rehab and all the different things that go along with mental health and dependency issues. And the one thing that I realized is that when I went into he'd go to the Salvation Army for 30 days, and across the street, Tent City is a huge community. And he would take me through there, and I would talk to people and I would ask them. We actually created a nonprofit where he's the chair, called Underground United. And we meet with the homeless. And we were trying to do every 2 weeks, but it happened a couple of weeks. I mean, he's working on getting it going again. But we just have the questions, and we know those closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And so what you hear is that I want a place to take a shower so I can get a job, or, I want a place that I want a job, but I need to get the skills to do it. I need somewhere to work in between. So if there's anything we know is that for the housing to fix the problem, I know we've done things in our community groups, have put them in hotels for a couple of weeks when it's July, and that's very humane, and we've got to be humane, but we've got to fix the root of the problem. So it's dealing with the mental health and the homeless. Now, here's an idea, and I'm not saying this is something that I support 100%. I still want to educate myself, but I try to look at best practices throughout the country. And I know there's a place that they do what's called sanctioned camping, where you designate an area for somebody's going to be camping, you put them out there, but you also give support services. You have security, because that's one of the biggest issues with the unhoused is safety and security. You have security there, which is number one. We got to be humane and take care of people. Number two is you have services, whether sometimes it's in the area of the judicial system, so that if somebody has a warrant or something that's holding them back from getting a job, they can fix that and clear it up. The other thing is it's almost a different level approach where, okay, now first you might start off here in this sanctioned camping, but then there's a group here that's building small houses with support around it. And then you get to a lot of the housing opportunities we have that you have to be off drugs or you have to have a job. And now you've gotten to that point. So it seems to be working. Plus people it's not all over the place. When site selectors come, they see that our city is clean and that we've got a lot going on. That was the other thing that Flowing Wells that the lady said was that, our community is dirty. Like, we got trash everywhere. I mean, the biggest thing when I was the coach at Pima Community College, I'd always say, leave it better than you found it. And everybody's job is whatever your job is and picking up trash. If you look at the Desert Vista campus that I'm at, it's probably one of the cleanest campuses because we take care of it. And we got to put that pride back here in Pima County and make this the most beautiful, cleanest county ever, and make sure that we put things in place to do that. But we've got to help the most vulnerable. We've got to be compassionate. We also know that there's a group of individuals that, that have such severe mental health or not going to get to a place where they can work. We got to figure out how to take care of them in a humane way.
What is it that you have in mind that you are really passionate about, that you want to provide leadership on that board to get the 2 or 3 additional votes that you need to really get a policy going? What is it that you want to leave as a legacy for your time in office?
I mean, the legacy I want to leave is just listening to my people and the constituents and giving them what they need. Now I could tell you from some things I've overseen and some stuff going on there. Like right now, I don't know how familiar you are with the Mosaic Quarters that's happening. Frank Knott's business, they're building what's called the Mosaic Quarters, where like 3 indoor hockey rinks and a field house, and it's right by Keno across the street. Now,
me and Joe actually went to a presentation on that recently.
I mean, let me ask you, what were your thoughts on it, Mike?
It seems like a great economic driver. It's a good deal for the county, I think.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to get at is there's things like we lost Major League Baseball. We lost there used to be the USA Baseball Trials where 100 teams staying in our hotels, eating in our restaurants, shopping in our shopping centers. So that Mosaic Quarters is a big deal. And, I know it's moving forward, but those are the things that we got to support, and we've got to do it efficiently. Sometimes we take so long to make a decision. There's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy. We got to get to the point where we trust each other as elected officials, as employees, that we can move efficiently through this process. So, that's a great economic driver. And, for me, this group here, the Democrats of Greater Tucson, is a key person in this whole process, because the way I make the best decisions is I get people that are in those areas or that understand I get their advice. We don't ever want to do anything in a vacuum. I mean, we want to be inclusive, and we want to make sure that we're talking to the people that are impacted most by whatever decision we're making. Just like I talked about my dad, right? Yeah, that was a great idea, save some money, but what's going to do to, employee morale, these bigger pictures and how you see if this little thing here and how you gotta have some ability to see the big picture. So that's one of them. And Joe, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So here's my question, maybe for some of you out there. When you see elected officials and you see, because sometimes I feel like we have a duopoly, right? We have just Republican and Democrat and trying to get people to see things. So yesterday, Joe, we're in the when we're talking about our 4th of July Thursday, right? And we're talking about that. And I think that a lot of times, people, if they have a flag or if they speak fondly of the United States, they might think, oh man, they're conservative, they're this and that. Whatever's happened in our past has happened in our past, and mostly the behavior of certain groups of people. But American ideals have always stood strong, right? Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all so the stuff I talked about. So I guess my question for all of you is what are your thoughts on stuff like ranked choice voting, open primaries? I've read a couple books. I've read the book, The Politics of Industry. I've read The Primary Solution. What are your thoughts on some of that stuff?
Well, raise your hand if you'd like to respond.
Just kind of
Lee, would you like to respond?
Wait, I forgot to take the hand down, but I was thinking that there are quite a few people on this Zoom meeting today that could answer this better than I could.
Okay, appreciate that.
I'd like to hear what I think Shirley's on here. I'd like to hear what she says. Am I right?
Shirley, the baton's been passed to you.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll start because
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we had candidates speak to our crowd that was out at the 4th of July celebration that we had as Democrats Greater Tucson. And there were some wonderful perspectives that were shared. And one of the reasons we actually had this celebration is, and Larry Bodine was the first one to really articulate this, is that it's time for Democrats to stand up and take back the flag, because you're exactly right. It's almost like you're a Republican, you're conservative, you wave the American flag, sometimes upside down. And so I think that the idea of civics and civil interaction, it's really, as hard as it is, we have to practice that amongst ourselves as Democrats, and we really have to practice that also with all our fellow Americans. So I hope that's kind of like one answer, feedback. Yeah. Mike Bryan has his hand up.
Yeah, just in general, I'm a big believer in democracy, and the more of it, the better. And the closer elections are to the actual preferences of voters, I think that tends to be better. And our current system, tends to polarize us. It tends to push people to the ends of the spectrum as opposed to the center to cooperation. As we can see in your race, the primary is basically the race, because of the way that we district can oftentimes be manipulated in order to favor one party over the other. And I'm not saying that that's what happened here, but that does happen frequently, and it reduces the ability of citizens to be able to have a real choice in an election as opposed to a choice between extremes. And so, yeah, I'm generally in favor of those kinds of reforms that try to hew to that line of giving more accurate feedback to elected officials and more choices to voters. I'm reminded of Mo Udall's famous saying, "The voters have spoken, the bastards." So we don't always like what happens when the voters have their way, but I think it's generally best for democracy.
Yeah, most certainly knew how to turn a phrase, I'll tell you.
Well, I'll tell you that's interesting because I was part of a presentation called "Make Elections Fair Again," and I think it was Arizona. And the thing that they kind of stress is they ask you, "Do you think our current political system is working?" And that was not one person that was in the meeting raised their hands. So I'm just about I want to be able to always have a dialogue with somebody, whether they're an R, an I, a D, whatever it is. And sometimes I feel we get things so polarized that we stop having discussions. I mean, one of the other people I spoke to yesterday at the Maria Bonitas is, I mean, this lady was probably as far right as you could imagine. I mean, she was calling, our former president communist and all. I mean, it was just, and I was listening to this and I was like, and just upset that the Chinese are coming or like they're gonna they're infiltrate like it was, and I'm like I go wait a minute and I gave her specific examples. I know a business owner in Marana that came here when they were working on the railroads. They've been very honorable, contribute to our society. And I talk about some of the things that Obama did and how he did love our country and he tried to come up with solutions. So, rather than getting defensive or whatever, I just actually try to speak facts. And I don't think I changed her mind, but I think I just got her thinking a little deeper where, if somebody does something, they catastrophize it, make it worse than it is, and they don't want to talk to that person anymore. So I'm always curious on all the Democrats that you guys have interviewed through the years, which ones, what do they do, whether it's through getting elected or once they're elected, that make them effective? What do you guys see as an effective elected official? I guess I'll ask you, Joseph. Joe,
What do folks want in an elected official?
no, like what's the ones that have been successful, the ones that the Democrats of Greater Tucson could say, you know what, we supported him or we interviewed him and he had the secret sauce, he had the formula to be effective. Who are those people and who do you see that, man, that they were good?
Yeah, well, one thing that I've observed, and I think a lot of folks have observed this too, folks on this call, is it's that getting out and knocking on doors and listening.
Mhm.
And it really sounds, Edgar, that you're doing that as well. The one politician I got to know the best when I came back to Tucson after being in Southern California for 9 years was Nancy Guterres, county legislator, LD 18.
Mhm.
And I sat down and had coffee with her.
Mhm.
And it was about this time, 2 years ago. And when she explained to me that she was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning
Mhm.
and she was strategically going into the district and knocking on doors, I said, wow, that's an incredible commitment.
Mhm.
Now there's a converse to that answer too. And that is, I've observed that all folks do putting out color postcards, if that's all they campaign, they don't win.
Mhm.
I've yet to see somebody that wins without canvassing. And people canvass by themselves, or a family member, or more than maybe a gaggle of people, like 5 or 6 people. I know Stephanie Stahl Hamilton has been out there canvassing her legislative district, and she's got a crew that she does it with. So that seems to be what I've seen as the secret sauce.
Well, I hope you're right, because you know how many we had canvassing on Thursday? If you go to my Facebook, you could probably see it posted. We had over 30 canvassing with me yesterday. And then on Thursday, the picture shows about 42, but it was actually more like 52 because some of them had left because we meet every morning and then everybody gets their little list of where they're going. So some people, it's like a routine. I mean, they'll go and they get it and they go, and so, that canvassing, I hope you're right about that because we have had huge groups canvassing. you come down to KG's Westside Cafe at 8:15 this Saturday, you'll see probably over 20 people there. You know, I'm hoping to get more, but that, I hope you're right about that, because everybody has different experiences. You know, sometimes people just want their literature dropped. They don't want to talk to anybody, right? Or we just say a little something on their ring tone. But most of the time you'll run into somebody. And one of the ladies, my two boys were canvassing yesterday, and they got this lady card who she's been 28 years recovered, you know, from dependency issues, right? And so she has a program that she you know, that she offers now. And which is really important because, you know, there's a song that says, if you ain't never been through it, you ain't really into it. And I think the part of that is, you know, some of these people who've had dependency issues or mental health issues, they've figured out the solution on getting better. And what their value is, they can go out there and talk to people who are going through what they are going through, and they can relate. And so I think that stuff is important. When you get out there and talking, you create these amazing relationships. One time I ran into a gentleman, he worked at the airport, one of the airlines, and he talked about, like, you know, we need to fly out of Tucson, right? I'm guilty of this. I'll go to Phoenix because there's a better deal out there, but our Tucson International Airport, if we want more flights going places and we want it to be easier to fly out of Tucson, we've got to start flying out of Tucson, right? And so these things that you don't think about, but can make a huge impact on our community, because now more flights, more jobs, more opportunities, you know, so there's a lot of things that if you can find out. And there was something else I was gonna mention where something was done, and then like you don't know the impact of something, and that it amplifies other things, right? So if we can create those force multipliers where this is gonna multiply this, so in a good way. So
I like, I think that our guest Edgar has a lot of good ideas. And I've worked on an awful lot of campaigns here in Tucson and actually in the state. It's it's who you've got on your side, and it's who you've cultivated before you run and after. What if you win, you must also keep in touch with these people, and you can't. One thing that has particularly irritated me, because my mom lives out across from KG's Cafe. Well, I'm surprised to hear that because I actually know where that is. And
show up on 7:30 on Saturday with us.
well, maybe I might
Yeah.
drive out there and see what you're up to.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that I live near Grant and Stone, and I think a lot of people, a lot of managers look at that area and they say, oh my God, it's full of the homeless. It's full of people that don't vote. It's full of renters. They don't like renters because renters don't vote, or they don't change their registration. So that becomes invalid at some point. I don't ignore these poorer neighborhoods, or these so-called neighborhoods that are not so opulent. And I'm so glad you're meeting out there at KG's, because that's right in the heart of an area that needs to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I always noticed when I was walking, and I said, if I see a yard that's got a flag, American flag, and it looks neater than the most of the ones around, that means they're Republicans. And I would love to get away from that, because
Yeah, I agree.
and I put out my flag sometimes when I remember. My neighbor puts out his, he's also a Democrat. And I noticed he had his out on the 4th of July, but I had to be up in Mount Lemmon by 9 o'clock. So I didn't do anything but get to Mount Lemmon by 9 o'clock in the morning. We had a band concert up there, so I forgot all about flags. So it's, I agree with the flag thing, and you just got to get out there and you've got to stay in touch with the people.
Well, Lee,
And I don't know, somebody else can disagree with me on that. It's fine with me.
Lee, you said two things that just kind of, you know, hit home for me. So one of the things that you mentioned is, you know, activating all these people. Like the thing that I've been humbled most about is that, you know, all these people are coming to help me. And I'm just surprised, like I'm just humbled by it. And it makes you want to work really hard because you don't want to disappoint any of those people that believe in you. But you know, one of the things that you mentioned, and this has been me cultivating and having these relationships over 55 years. I've been here for 55 years in Southern Arizona. I went away when I was in the Marine Corps and I was in college, but this is home. So for me, I don't feel like I'm trying to create relationships. For me, a lot of it's activating people that I've already had these great experiences with because I've helped them in some way or another. They've helped me. You know, I've got my second grade teacher. I mean, just walking for me, going, passing out everything. I mean, if anybody, you know, when this is over, I mean, you want to hire her as one on your campaign staff because she's incredible. I mean, I don't know how old she is now, but she was my second grade teacher. I'm 55, so you could do the math, but she's out there hustling for me. And that means a lot to me because I feel like when you're in second, third grade, your true character is there because you're not worried about what anybody thinks. And I think what she saw in me that I was always a kind person. I was always bringing people together. I was always, you know, I wasn't, I was competitive, but sometimes I was happy to see this other guy win because I know that, you know, I just have that kindness in my heart. I used to, being a Latino male, sometimes it's difficult because you got the whole machismo thing. And I remember, you know, situations where I, you know, try to be a certain way, but I feel like, you know, I needed to be kind. And now I just embrace it. I say, yeah, I get criticized. Oh, you're too nice. You're too this and that. But that's what it should be. You know, I've treated everybody, any student I've had like my own kid. And I think that's been the important part. But, you know, the canvassing and getting out, I really hope that's because I'm new to this. I'm not a politician. I'm new to all of this. So I don't know if what we're doing is working. I feel like it is. I feel like we're being really strategic. We're using all the resources, software. I'm trying to get to as many people as possible. But, you know, it comes down to these next 10 days. You know, this is where most people vote, you know, so no matter what, I'm going to give my best effort and I'm going to do everything I can to make those who've put in, whether it's sweat equity or donated to my campaign, I want to make sure that they know that I'm going to be up early in the morning, out doing stuff and stay out late at night until I, try to connect with everybody. You know, I give my personal cell number to everybody. And it's on all my cards because I think we should always be accessible. And if and when I do get this position, I will stay accessible. That's been my mode of operation since I started at Pima, is being accessible. Even when people don't agree with me, you know, change my mind. If you think your idea is better, I'm listening, like change my mind. So.
Right.
Okay, Mike Ryan has his hands up.
Yeah, I'd really like to know, for those people who are going to be voting over the next couple of weeks, what is the biggest distinguishing factor? What do you want people to hear from you that says, I need to vote for Edgar Soto as opposed to one of these other candidates? What's the biggest differential?
Well, I don't know necessarily this is different because I know my other candidates. I know they've talked about it, but I don't know to the level that I'm going to be accessible and I'm going to listen. And I'll be there to listen to you. And I'm going to make sure that the things I do, like I said, I'm going to work for the people. I know most people say, well, I'm going to make decisions for themselves or whoever it is. No, my job is to make decisions for my constituents, and I'm there to represent that. So know that I don't have any personal policies or personal agenda that I want. I want to listen to the people that are in those areas being impacted by our policies, our laws, our statutes. So, you know, that's the one thing that's just who I am. And I've always been that way. And I know there's going to be a grander level because there'd be a lot more people. You know, I say when I was a baseball coach, I could impact 25 to 35 people. When I was the athletic director, I could impact, you know, 400 or 500 people. When I was the dean, you know, maybe there's a couple thousand, but now I'm a president or a vice president of a campus, you know, there's a few more thousand. Now as a community, a Pima County supervisor, now you're talking, you know, a lot more, you know, close to 1 million people that were, you know, well, I know, you know, we have, I think, 80,000 voters in District 3, 80 some thousand voters. So, you know, it's just expanding what I've always been doing and under knowing that my intentions are always going to be acted on with kindness and treating the people that are impacted by these decisions like I want my own loved ones to be treated. And I think that's at the center and the core of who I am and what I do.
Okay. Time has flown by, and since I've been moderating these wonderful Zoom meetings, I've never had the guest ask questions of us, and I thought that was really cool.
I'm forever curious. I always want to listen to people. People for me are fascinating. So yeah.
No, you did good, Edgar, and really want to thank the participants. Without our audience, be really hard to have a program. And want to thank you all, and thanks to Mike Bryan for setting up the debates along with Andrew. And we had 3 robust debates of folks running in the Democratic primary, which is coming up at the end of the month. You should be getting your ballots in the mail if that's how you do it. And Edgar, a big thank you to you. You've been wonderful. You were great at the debate, as your other candidates were. It was great to have you at the 4th of July celebration. And of course, we hope the videotape of today's program can be a real tool, like it is for a lot of candidates, to get the word out.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me. And whatever happens here, I've made some really good friends, and I want to, one thing with me, once we're connected, it's forever. We'll always be connected in some way. So I love that opportunities that you provide for us and information. I think the Democrats of Greater Tucson, you guys do an amazing service. So thank you for creating this space and opportunity.
Hey everybody, it's Senator Mark Kelly. As all of you know, Arizona Democrats have had a lot of important wins over the last few years. We won 2 U.S. Senate races, and we delivered Arizona's electoral votes to President Biden and Vice President Harris. We elected Governor Katie Hobbs, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, and Attorney General Chris Mays. Now, those elections were close, and our victories mattered. Arizona Democrats from the federal to the local level have delivered real results for our state on critical issues like combating climate change, lowering prescription drug costs, protecting the right to vote, and preventing more restrictions on abortion access. The Democrats of Greater Tucson offers the opportunity to hear from elected officials and candidates about that important work and the issues that matter to them. That information will be invaluable as Arizonans head to the polls. So this election cycle, whether you're signing up to knock doors, make phone calls, or joining the Democrats of Greater Tucson to hear from and speak to Democrats in our area, please know that your voice matters, and we need you on this team. Thank you.